This season, I decided to grow sunflowers two different ways just to see what would happen. Now, this is not a scientific experiment. This is just a backyard gardener's personal little test just to see the differences in growth, if any. Now, I've always heard that you should direct sow sunflowers in ground rather than starting them in little seed starter pots because they have a long taproot that's very sensitive if you disturb it at all. But of course, sometimes direct sowing in ground is not always possible, especially if you have birds in your area that like to pick the seeds out of the ground, or you have issues with slugs or snails or cutworms that love to munch on the little seedlings once they sprout up out of the ground. So it's totally understandable why we would want to start these in pots. I made sure to do this same little experiment with two different varieties of sunflowers. One would be the short stuffed sunflowers, which usually top out around 1.5 to maybe 3 feet tall. And the other would be with the mammoth sunflowers, which grow up to 12 feet tall. Now, for the mammoth sunflowers, I started them in larger pots because I know that they grow much larger and faster. So I wanted to give them enough room and didn't want them to go root bound before transplanting them outside. And this is what I used for the short stuff sunflowers. So a little smaller, but really that doesn't make a difference. It's a smaller sunflower. So I'm just going to stand up now and show you because I'm talking too much. So for this first row, what you see here are the short stuff sunflowers. These were the ones that I direct sowed in ground. I wanted a line of 8 sunflowers here in front of my tomato crops. And on the same day that I direct sowed these, I started some in pots. However, along this line, one of them did not germinate. So instead of just coming back out with another seed and placing that in ground, I decided to just transplant one of the ones that I started in pots. So what I'll do here is first measure the ones that I direct sowed. This is about 11 inches tall. All of these along this line are more or less the same height except for this one. This one's a little taller. This one's about 13 inches high. Now, right here, this is where that one seed never germinated, so I transplanted one of the ones that I started in pots. Started at the same time. This one's also flowering like the others. All of them have their buds, and some of them already opened. But this one here comes in at a whopping 5 inches in height. Another side note here with this little transplant is the size of the sunflower head. You can see that it's just now starting to bloom, or it's ready to bloom. But if I come over here and I look at the one right next to it, which is also ready to bloom, you can tell that there's a difference in the size of the head. Now I'm going to walk you over to another section where I had transplanted some sunflowers in ground that I had started in pots. And we are on the same side of the property. This is the west side of the property. Here's another one that was started in pots on the same day. And this one's coming in at about 9 inches tall. Look at this one. This one's also flowering. Started at the same time. Again, all I did was transplant this in ground, and we're coming in at 4 inches. Also flowering, as you can see. It could be also due to the fact that it receives a little more shade because of this tree, but still gets a good 7 hours of direct sunlight every day. Same situation here. This is one of the ones that I transplanted outside, 6 inches. I don't want to disturb this little one, so I'll let it do its thing, but it's about the same height as the one I just showed you, so about 5-6 inches tall. When I transplanted these, I made sure to be very careful. I made sure they weren't root bound. I also ensured that the soil stayed intact around the roots. Now I'm going to show you the mammoth sunflowers and how they did. What you see in front of me here is one that I direct sowed in ground. And although it's not flowering yet, you can still get an idea on the size. This is an 18-inch ruler, it's a foot and a half, 18 inches just above this little leaf. So it's about 28 inches tall. Now let's look at one that I transplanted. A foot and a half, plus I'd say about another inch. So I'd say about 19 inches, 19, 20 inches. You can also see the stem. Look at the difference in the stem versus the one I started in ground. It has a thicker main stalk or stem. To note, all of the ones that are growing outside have the same soil going on. So all of them have the same amendments in ground. All of them are growing on the same side of the property. Only one of them was receiving dappled sunlight throughout part of the day. So it was probably getting about 6 to 7 hours of direct sunlight, whereas the other ones, the ones that were in a straight line, are getting about 8 hours of direct sunlight per day. And I will say that I did do this little experiment on the east side of the property. So I have both of them growing, the mammoth and the short stuff. And I did the same exact thing, but I won't really go into that and show you because honestly, it's redundant. It's basically the same results as what we just saw here on the west side. What I learned from this little experiment is that it's definitely better to direct sow these in ground, just like it is with other vegetables or fruiting crops like your watermelon, squashes, peas, beans, things like that. So personally, for me, I'll be starting my sunflowers in ground moving forward always. Now, like I said earlier, I know it's not always a possibility, especially if you have those little critters that love to chomp on the seedlings and not even give them a chance at life from the very get-go. I don't know what it is about these things, but little critters absolutely love the small seedlings. Now, I will say that there are two solutions that come to mind right away for seedlings in ground if you want to protect them. And one is to spray them with BT, which is an organic spray, and it's not harmful to you or to the plant, but it will keep those critters away. And another option would be to use this. Now, these are very inexpensive baskets that I got at Dollar Tree, literally for $1.25 each. And what I have is a fabric called tulle. And tulle allows the sun to come through so it doesn't block any sunlight, but it does keep the little critters away. So they won't even be able to get to the seedlings. So you basically just cover the seedling with this basket. And the tulle is optional, but if you don't use it, the worms can still make their way into the basket through the holes. So the tulle is definitely advisable. This also keeps birds away from your little seeds. So if you do plant them in ground and you notice that you have a lot of birds that like to peck at the seeds before they even germinate, this will help with the birds as well. I hope this video was helpful and watching the results of my little experiment. If you have any questions, just let me know in the comments below and I will catch you on our next video.